What is up, YouTube? You know who I am? I don't know who you are, but you're watching regardless. And this is my review for Persona 4 Golden. Now, I've spent the past about 6 months playing this one game for my Vita. Now that game is none other than Persona 4 Golden. I got this game back in November, and I just finally beat it this morning, and I wanted to make this game my first game review on my channel. Now, why did I want to do that? Mainly just because I do really like JRPGs, but I haven't played a really good one that's absorbed me probably since Final Fantasy XII back in 2006. Now, Persona 4 did come out in the same year, but I never heard of the Persona series before. Well, I heard of it, but I hadn't played it. And I just never really got into it. It was right around the time I ended up getting my PlayStation 3, and it just kind of slipped past me. And sadly enough, it actually slipped past a lot of people just for the fact that it came out very, very near to the end of the PS2's lifespan. In fact, I would even go as far as to say it came out after its lifespan was already over. But let me just say that there's not very many games I play where you don't want them to end. It was one of those rare experiences where I kept playing and playing and playing, and I knew I was getting closer and closer to the end, and I wanted to get closer to the end because I wanted to unveil the mystery. But at the same time, I just was so in love with the characters and everything, and I just didn't want it to end. So anyways, for the review, I'm going to be doing a typical structure. This structure is going to be compiled of 4 different categories, and then I'm going to give it an overall score at the end. These 4 categories will be design, story, gameplay, and presentation. Alright, so let's get started with my first game review. That was kind of cheesy, wasn't it? Yeah. Design. Now, as I said before, this is probably one of the best JRPGs I've ever played, and I've played a lot of JRPGs. Now, what makes it so good? Well, it's kind of a combination of everything that can make a JRPG good. It's got a great story, the mechanics are easy to use, it's got so many multiple levels of gameplay in it that it's almost too complicated, but at the same time, the complications is what makes it so intriguing, regardless of how much depth that Atlas put into all the multiple systems in the game. Now, don't get me wrong, if you're worried that you're going to get this game and it's going to be too much for you, that's not the case. It's actually got a lot of tutorials. The first 2 hours or so is one of the longest RPG introductions or any game introduction that I've played in quite some time. You really don't even get to start playing until about 2.5 hours in, but that's because that first 2 hours or so is just explaining to you all the mechanics of the game. And as you go through, there's also just little teeny design quirks that are just so minuscule, but they're so well done that you just can't help but notice them. So all in all, you can just really tell the designers put a lot of work into this game, just in everything in general. It's so huge, it's got fantastic voice acting for the most part. She's a little annoying, just my opinion. She's hot, she's annoying. A great soundtrack, beautiful art, it's just so well put together. It's ultimately just a perfect example of a developer sitting down with their game and knowing what they're doing and loving what they're doing. That's ultimately what makes it so well designed. Story. Oh my gosh, this game's story, it's so freaking awesome! First of all, it's freaking huge. Second of all, it's got some of the best video game humor that I have ever had the pleasure of witnessing. It is freaking hilarious. I don't know how many times I was playing this game and I would just randomly burst out laughing because the humor and the writing is so fantastic. Now, ultimately what the story is about is you play an unnamed character, or if you've played Persona 4 Arena, the character's name goes by some Japanese last name. Narashiki Muji or something like that, I have no idea. Anyway, basically you come to this new town, you're there to, just for a year to visit your uncle and his niece. It's kind of a mix of paranormal meets just living your whole year as a student. You know, high school drama, part-time job, you know, building up social links with other characters. But ultimately, there's all these murders going on in small town of Inaba. And you're basically just trying to, with the help of your friends, solve who the killer is and how it's happening. And you're basically going into this television world. Yes, you actually go through a television. It's pretty crazy. You are trying to rescue people that have been kidnapped and thrown into this world. Now, it sounds complicated, and it is, but that's one of the best things about the game, is the story itself. It is very complicated. There's so many characters to keep track of, but it's ultimately one of those games that has a ton of endings. If you want to get the true ending, it's actually a lot of work. I beat the game officially about a month ago, but I didn't get the true ending, so I ended up spending about another 10-15 hours just getting that true ending, and man, was that ending so much better than the other ending. So if you guys end up playing this game, which I really hope you do, and I highly recommend you do, just for the story alone, I hope you take the time to get to that true ending, because it is really, really worth that extra effort. And ultimately, this is probably one of the most memorable game stories that I've played in a long time. Not just the story itself, just because the characters are so memorable, and I'm really, really gonna be sad not to see them as much as I was seeing them. They kind of became friends to me as well, if that makes sense. So, yeah. In other words, the story is awesome. Awesome. Gameplay. So I've already kind of gone over the gameplay a little bit. It's kind of a mix of JRPG combat with simulation. So let's start off with the simulation aspect. Basically, like I said, you're just living your life as a student. So you're going to be attending school, you're going to be building up social links with other characters, and what the social links do is they basically will help your stats improve, which will affect how well you battle in the television world. So it's a really perfect mix of the simulation and the combat because they gel so well together. Now, one of the most addicting things about the gameplay is actually the persona system. Every character gets their own persona, but you as the main character can kind of capture, in a sense, much like Pokemon, other personas and fuse them together to make more powerful personas. The combat system isn't very deep. It's basically just turn-based, you know, all four of your team members go, and then your opponent goes, and then it goes back to you. But it has a good layer of depth just for the fact that enemies have weaknesses, and there's so many different attributes in the game. Fire, wind, ice, and lightning. There's also light and dark. All the enemies in the game will have different weaknesses. So you are kind of switching personas quickly on the fly just to adapt to what enemies you're fighting. Now, sadly, I'll say that's one thing about the game that probably could have been a little bit better, was the combat system's actually, in my opinion, the weakest part of the game. This is because all the other elements are just so addicting and you end up caring so much about the other characters that when you're in the real world, you spend so much time there, and then when you go into the television world, all you want to do is fly through the dungeon and get back to experiencing all the social links. But in the end, the combat is still really enjoyable. Gameplay overall is still fantastic. Trust me, you will get very addicted with maxing out all those social links, and there are a lot of them. And I mean a lot. Like 80 hours worth. Not even kidding. Like, it's ridiculous. BAM! Presentation. This game looks gorgeous on the PlayStation Vita HD screen. The upgrade from the PlayStation 2 version, which was 4:3, up to the PlayStation Vita's HD is so amazing, and the graphics have been upgraded to such an astounding level that this is probably one of the best looking games in the Vita right now. I would go as far as to say it is the best looking game, even above Uncharted. The menus are all really easy and simple to follow. The animations just pop out of the screen at you. The animated cutscenes are completely gorgeous. It just looks so good on the Vita screen. And I would go as far as to say, even if you have beat Persona 4 on the PlayStation 2, this version is still worth getting again, just because it looks so damn good. Now, one of the coolest things that I noticed a lot of critics haven't really been covering about the game, it actually has this cool television mode. Now, what this mode is you just double click on the bottom right hand side of the Vita, just like this, tap tap. This little menu thing will pop up, and it's like kind of like a channel that you pick from all of the cutscenes of the game. You can listen to music. It's got cool videos from Japan about Persona. Like, that alone I was just really impressed with. Not just because, you know, it's extra content, but because Atlas went out of the way to add in all this stuff just for the sake of the Persona fans, which they knew were going to be buying it. And I personally love that aspect. That's one of my favorite parts of the presentation. Final score. So overall, this is one of my most loved games in recent memory. I love the characters, I love the story, the gameplay was really, really good, especially the simulation portion. The music was phenomenal. it looked great, everything about this game was just so solid, and it's honestly the best game available on the Vita right now. So before closing, let's go through all the positive points and all the negative points of the game, and after that I'll give the score for each category and then the final score afterwards. So this game has a lot of positive points. Starting off, it looks fantastic, especially on the Vita's HD screen. It's got an interesting story full of murder and mystery, filled with a lovable and unforgettable cast of characters. It's hilariously entertaining dialogue and the writing is fantastic. The simulation portion is addicting, especially trying to max out all the social links. The Pokemon-like Persona system of collecting and combining for new results is also a big plus. It's also extremely long, it has excellent bang for your buck and fantastic replay value. There's also tons of content, meaning you'll never run out of things to do. Each day is always a new adventure. And you can't forget that catchy soundtrack. Fortunately, there's not many negative points to talk about. The battle system in dungeons can be repetitive and monotonous at times. And unfortunately, the game ends. You just want to keep on playing and you just don't want to leave the world of Persona 4 and the small town of Inama, but sadly things do come to an end. Now let's go over the scores for the 4 categories. Meaning my overall score for the game is a whopping 9.5. I highly recommend you guys check it out, and I would even go as far as to say it's worth buying a Vita for. Not just because it's a great game, but also because you will be playing it for a very long time to come. So anyways guys, thanks for watching my very first game review on my channel. Really appreciate the support. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed doing it. And make sure to hit that like and subscribe button because it really helps me out. So thanks again for watching guys, and make sure to keep it real or something. Yeah, I got nothing else. Peace!